Every church you've ever set foot in was built as an occult instrument. The floor plan maps to the Kabbalistic tree of life. The baptismal font is a banishing ritual. The stained glass windows are sigils, and the Mass itself is ceremonial magic. Remember, occult means hidden. So what exactly has the church been keeping hidden in its architecture, its liturgy, and its 2,000 years of documented history? Walk into any cathedral in Europe, face the altar. You'll be facing east toward the sunrise. The word orientation comes from this. Orient, east. To orient a building meant, originally, to aim it at the rising sun. Churches do this for the same reason that Egyptian temples do it, for the same reason that Stonehenge does it. The sun sits at the center of every spiritual tradition that humans have produced. Every single one. But the builders went further. They aimed the apse at the exact point on the horizon where the sun rose on the feast day of the church's patron saint. Chartres Cathedral is aligned so precisely that on the summer solstice, a beam of sunlight strikes a specific marker embedded in the floor. Sit in those pews at dawn on the right morning, and you'll watch light travel the length of the nave and hit the altar at the moment the priest raises the host. These buildings are solar calendars in stone, with rituals designed to work with the architecture itself. So look at a cathedral from above, and you'll see a cross. That much should be obvious. However, the cross as a sacred diagram predates Christianity by millennia. The Egyptian Ankh, the Celtic cross, the four-armed crosses of Hindu and Buddhist temples. In the Western magical tradition, practitioners trace a cross on their own bodies at the start of every ritual. Above, below, left, right. 4 directions, 4 elements. The cathedral follows the exact same schema with its architecture. The Tree of Life is a map used in Jewish mysticism and Western magic. 10 spheres arranged in 3 columns, describing the path from material existence to divine unity. It's by far the most important schema in the entire Western esoteric tradition, and it happens to fit over a cathedral floor plan perfectly. So, you walk through the doors into the narthex. On the Tree of Life, that's Malkuth, Earth, ordinary reality. You're standing where you always stand. Now, walk forward. The nave, the long central aisle, is the middle pillar, the path of ascent. Each step toward the altar moves you up the tree. The transepts, the arms of the cross, correspond to the 2 side pillars, mercy and severity, expansion and discipline, the twin forces that every mystical tradition says hold the universe in balance. At the far end, the altar, is Kether, the crown, divine unity, and anyone who walks a procession down a cathedral aisle is walking the Tree of Life. The church, of course, does not explain this to lay practitioners, assuming the church even remembers. But the people who designed these buildings, they knew very well what they were encoding permanently into stone. The baptismal font sits at the entrance, always the entrance, and that placement tells you everything. In every Western magical tradition, the first act before any working is purification. You clear the space, you clear yourself. Ceremonial magicians call this banishing. The lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram has been the standard opening act for practicing magicians since the 1880s, at least. In Judaism, the mikveh does the same work. In Islam, wudu. In Hinduism, abhisheka. Different names, identical function. You don't bring the noise of the street into sacred space. You don't come to God's house unless you're in your Sunday best. Now, the font at the church door is the same type of operation. You walk in, you dip your hand, you cross yourself. Water. The sign of the cross traced on your body. Intention. You've now performed a purification rite using the exact same elements, in the same position in the ritual sequence, and for the exact same reason. If you've done this, you already know what it feels like. That shift when you cross yourself and something in your chest loosens. When all of a sudden the room gets quieter and not externally, the noise in your head. That's real magic. The church might not call it by that name, but I do. Now, as many of you likely know, a sigil is a symbolic image designed to bypass your conscious mind and land in the unconscious. You don't really read a sigil or understand it, you just absorb it. Color, geometry, and association do the work instead of language. Magicians have used this technique under various forms for centuries to talk directly to the unconscious mind. So, consider what happens when you sit in a church. The interior is dark stone. Frankincense burns in the thurible. Now, frankincense does something specific to the brain. It activates TRPV3 ion channels, which reduce anxiety and shift mood. Johns Hopkins and Hebrew University both published on this. It's pharmacology, not opinion. Chanting fills the space. Rhythmic, repetitive vocal vibration that entrains brainwave patterns toward the same frequencies found in deep meditation. And yes, this is real. This is real brain change. So you're seated, you're still, your eyes are raised. Into that state comes light, pouring through massive colored glass. Saints, angels, the crucifixion. Scenes carrying hundreds and hundreds of years of accumulated symbolic weight. Millennia, in fact, transmitted not through language, but through saturated color and form. You're not reading those windows, you're not interpreting them. You're receiving them in a state where your analytical mind has gone quiet, which, of course, is how a sigil operates. The glass carries the image, the incense, the chanting, the darkness, the stone. All of it exists to open your heart and your mind. The medieval glaziers understood exactly what they were building. Many of them belonged to craft guilds that passed philosophical and technical knowledge through initiatory chains. The paper trail runs from those guilds to the earliest Masonic lodges, and from there into the Western esoteric tradition. So, you entered through a solar-aligned door, purified yourself at the threshold, walked the tree of life in stone, and now you're seated in an altered state, constructed from incense, sound, and the very architecture itself. And so now that you're in this state, the central rite can begin. A trained practitioner in ritual vestments will stand at a consecrated altar. He'll speak invocations in a sacred language. He'll perform prescribed gestures. He'll manipulate symbolic implements. His stated aim? To transform the substance of physical matter itself. Bread becomes flesh. Wine becomes blood. The Catholic Church calls this transubstantiation. Whether you take that literally or symbolically, the structure of the operation is identical to ceremonial magic. Not similar, identical. Now, let's take a look at the implements on the altar. The chalice, that's the cup. The paten, the plate that holds the bread. The pentacle, the disc. The crucifix standing upright, that's the wand. Of course, incense filling the air is the fourth element, air. So we've got 4 elements, 4 weapons, and of course these are the same 4 suits of the tarot, which is no coincidence. The Catholic liturgy and the Western magical tradition grew from the same root. So every mass you've ever attended was performed with a full set of ceremonial magical implements on the altar. It's just that nobody mentioned it. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn designed their rituals by studying the Mass. Aleister Crowley wrote his own version of the Mass, which decoded Catholic and Russian Orthodox liturgy and made the esoteric content explicit. What he revealed through his version had already been happening inside every Catholic or Orthodox church on earth every Sunday for almost 2,000 years. Now, I'm not debunking Christianity, and I'm certainly not claiming churches are evil. They work. People walk out of a Sunday service calmer, clearer, more connected than when they walked in. That happens because everything inside the building is doing what it was designed to do. The alignment, the water, the geometry, the sensory environment, the rite. Methods that are ancient, cross-cultural, and tested across every civilization that has ever built a sacred structure, and that's pretty much all of them. The gap between attending church and practicing magic, however, comes down to awareness. In church, no one explains why you feel different afterward. You receive the effects without understanding the causes fully. You get the instrument, but not the manual. The manual's for the priests. But magic, the Western esoteric tradition, is the manual, and you can read it too. Every method at work inside a church exists in the Western magical tradition as a skill that you can study, practice, and direct. Purification, invocation, altered states of consciousness, symbolic transformation, all learnable, all yours. So, next time you walk into a church, or even drive past one, you'll see it. The eastward alignment, the font at the door, the geometry underfoot, the light through the glass. Once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. That shift from receiving to understanding is magic. Now, I have a free course called Why Magic that takes everything I've described here and turns it into a practice that you can start right now, this week. The link's in the description. And of course, subscribe if this video changed how you see churches.